Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined by Jerry Hamilton, and this morning, Marcus Myers. It's a Marcus Myers Monday, so it's fitting that you're with us anyway. But filling in for Bobby this morning as he's having a little internet issues, more so than usual, I guess we should say.
Trees down. If anybody's seen pictures in that Nashville area, he's got trees down in his yard. It's been he's lost some big trees there as well in his backyard. So they have had it really rough from a weather standpoint there in that area.
Definitely. So, but tell us where you're checking in from this morning, what you're drinking, get your questions in. We're going to get to those here in a little bit. Lots of people talking about how cold it is this morning as well. And we're actually going to talk about the portal. But first, guys, I wanted to bring this up here, Jerry, and let you answer this question from Humble Hustle. He says, here we might go after the linebacker out of Miami. Your thoughts?
Talking about Raul Aguirre, who went in the portal after the national championship game, the answer to that is no. Can things change? Maybe, but I don't think so in this case. I think Texas is done at linebacker. So I do not think they will be going after him. Yeah, by the way, we'll talk about high school recruiting later. Brock Williams, tight end from Illinois, he's used to this weather. Now he's grown up in this weather. He was on campus this weekend as well as Easton Royal, the 4-star plus 5-star wide receiver commit out of New Orleans, brother Martin, same high school DJ Augustine went to before DJ transferred to Hightower after Katrina. But Lane Kiffin was by the school last week. He made his way with his mom to Texas for a couple of days this weekend. They all attended the basketball game, the win over Georgia Saturday, which we'll talk about the hoops a little bit later in the show as well, get a little update there. But they had a couple of high school kids on campus. But as far as Raul Aguirre, Texas is not expected to pursue him at linebacker.
Well, let's talk about the portal, guys. ESPN actually put out a list. So we're going to look at the top 10. They put out a top 25. I can drop that link in the chat if you want to look at 11 through 25. But they ranked the portal classes, LSU coming in at number 1, Texas Tech number 2, Indiana number 3, the Longhorns number 4, followed by Ohio State, Penn State, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Michigan, and Texas A&M round out the top 10. But any surprises to you two? What do y'all think?
I'll start with LSU because that's key because Texas is going to play at LSU this year. LSU had 40 guys in the signed from the portal. Obviously, Lane Kiffin with a roster remake. He has 97 scholarship players. It may be a little higher than that now, but I think it's 97. Obviously, with Jordan Seat coming in there, Sam Levitt, Prince Will, who knows what that deal was to get out of his deal with Ole Miss. But you go down the list of Luba. I mean, he pretty much did a remake. Got Husan Longstreet as a number 2 quarterback. Because the thing with Sam Levitt is he's going to miss the spring with the foot injury. So that'll give Longstreet a chance to get ready to be a strong number 2. They brought in Winston Watkins, a receiver that has some familiarity with the offense, but a total remake. So they're very deserving for those who look. The Jordan Ross, the edge from Tennessee, has a lot of upside. For those that look at the portal rankings and care about the rankings, LSU is a deserved number 1. 1, because they got really good players. But 2, he just remade the whole roster, Marcus. I mean, 40 guys plus I think 17 signees, 57 new players out of the 97 scholarship players at LSU right now.
Yeah, and when you talk about the 40 guys, Jerry, it's not just 40 coming in, then there was 33 going out. So you end up having a pretty big, turnover. So, I know there's been a lot of conversation at different times amongst our fans of, hey, what does that do for your locker room? Well, you try and figure that out for a Lane Kiffin that's truly, rebuilding a program and in the way that he would want it to be. I think the other thing that was interesting about this list, the other team you looked at that had a pretty good volume that we play is Ole Miss, and for similar reasons, right? They had a bunch of churn at the head coaching position, but then now you even hear some of this stuff that Dabo is going directly at them and some of Pete Golding's practices. So when I look at these kinds of things, I find it interesting because everybody has their own college football bubble. Obviously, ours is Texas, but I promise you, I'd certainly rather be us than some of these squads. And I think it's an interesting list to look at. Honestly, in a lot of ways, it doesn't differ a ton from some of the recruiting rankings, unless you had some significant changeover. When you look at some other opponents on there, Ohio State, I think they just agreed to hire Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator. So you're going to have, some different things that have taken place at some of these schools that, we're going to end up seeing here in the fall. And then even when you look down there at the Aggies, they have, their first time play caller now in Holman Wiggins. So there's going to be a bunch of different things that, will be interesting as we get closer to the season, but certainly in the off season to take a look at, what it is they do. I see there, Indiana at 3. Yeah, but, they brought in, they made some pretty quick moves, right? They brought in Josh Hoover from TCU. He was one of the higher rated portal quarterbacks. I forget the running back's name that they brought in. It's like Turbo or something like that.
Yeah, he's out of Boston College. I love him, by the way.
College guy that runs really hard. And then they went and grabbed Nick Marsh pretty quick as well at receiver. So I think, Signetti, he's proven at this point. And so you kind of trust who it is that he's gone and grabbed. And I think they did a pretty good job on retaining a number of guys that maybe would have otherwise gone to the NFL. So it'll be an interesting, thing to follow, especially once it's all fully settled a little further into the offseason.
I think it's interesting as we look at Texas. On Ohio State real quick, Ohio State went hard in the secondary and D-line in the portal. I thought that was interesting. They got hit hard with portal transfers on the offensive line. I think they had 5 out. They didn't bring one in. But maybe they brought one in. But they went hard on defense. And now they've had a lot of defensive losses the last 2 years, just like Texas, your Georgias, your big-time programs. They recruit really, really good players. But they did go hard at secondary and D-line, which was interesting to me, just something we may be talking about as we get closer to that game next year in Austin, which I think is pretty much a must-win game for Texas, looking at the schedule and the playoffs staying at 12.
Yeah.
And we had a question. Someone wanted to know, where did Bama end up? Guys, I'm going to read you a couple of others. Alabama came in at 23, Oklahoma at 24. Your other SEC schools, you had Missouri at 25, Georgia at 22, South Carolina 21, Tennessee 20. So a lot of SEC on the back end of that top 25 as well.
Yeah, Alabama they had to be heavy offensive line. They had some losses. They had some guys transfer out. They went 6 offensive line coming in. They lost a number of guys going out on the offensive line too, and they lost some starter level guys, right? So they had to go heavy offensive line there to even have a chance at their numbers. Quay Rousseau, James Smith, their D linemen who left, good players, future draft picks, went to Ohio State. Interesting there to me. Isaiah Horton, obviously the receiver that left when Alabama was all in on Cam Coleman, got caught holding the bag. Isaiah Horton goes to A&M. And then Alabama brought in a number of defensive linemen as well to kind of replenish what they lost. So Alabama had an interesting portal class. My thought, Devin Tompkins from USC is pretty good on the D-line. I think they might have lost more than they got. Be interesting to see.
Well, before we go any further this morning, I need to tell everyone about one of our sponsors, our main sponsor there, if I can find it, John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. We would like to thank John, president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group, who this month kicked off his 4th year of sponsoring Monday's Coffee and Football Show. John is a proud Texas Ex's Life member who truly bleeds burnt orange. His wife and 6 siblings are all UT grads as well. So it was his family passion for UT that led John to brand his firm, Longhorn Wealth Management Group, and dedicate it to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services to Longhorn families and fans across the nation, which John has been doing for over 30 years. Like so many OTF fans, John's excited about the portal additions already with the possibility to add more. So with that optimism, John is offering all OTF fans a free 90-minute private consultation via Zoom, phone, or in person to allow John to gain an understanding of your financial circumstances and to help you explore how working with a certified financial planner like John can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. So to schedule your own free 90-minute private consultation, just call the Longhorn Wealth team at 972-707-4900 or schedule online longhornwealth.net. And John says, hook 'em to the OTF family. Okay, guys. Well, up next, let's we've been looking at positions every day. We did edges, we did defensive line the last part of last week. Let's take a look at running backs today. I'm going to put that up. We got 6 of them up on the screen. Curious to get y'all's thoughts.
Yeah, so look, Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers out of the portal, obviously. James Simon, Michael Terry, returnees. Derek Cooper, Jet Walker, signees. So that's where we start with this 6 scholarship running backs. Marcus, I want to go to you. Comparison, I'm just asking, I want to start here. Comparison between Hollywood Smothers and Trey Wisner. What do you think of those two guys as runners compared to each other?
I think Smothers is, I think it's a bit more natural to him. I didn't ever go back and look at, some of what he was in high school, right? I wouldn't be shocked if maybe he played some wide receiver, but I know Trey Wisner did, right? He was one that you didn't really know what he was going to grow into. I think Smothers is maybe a bit more of a pure runner. Now, that being said, I think with Trey's evolution, I think he was able to become a very, very patient runner. But I think, when I watch Smothers, I look at him as more of a true running back or true pure runner, as you kind of hear the term sometimes, and then having a higher top end, right? So I think his explosivity is a bit better than Trey's. But from build side, build wise, I can see, some similarities there to a degree, but I think it's one where, Smothers has played that position for a bit longer, feels a bit more likely comfortable in that position. And so, when you're looking at them one-to-one, and you remove the locker room component of it, but I got to assume that, any of these guys, for the most part, that, Sark chose to bring in are going to mesh well with the teams. And I think, the fortunate part is for pretty much all of the rooms, with the exception of the running back room, you have guys that, have already been there. But I think the good part about who they've brought in the running back room is both of them are older guys, right? So they've had some experience in college football. But yeah, making that comparison to Smothers and Trey, I think, each of them have some of their strengths, but, Trey has some more explosivity that I think has been lacking in the run game for sure.
I think what'll be interesting to look back on almost a year from now, I guess, is Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers had a combined 71 receptions last year. Now, those 71 receptions didn't net a ton of yards. They only netted 430 yards, 420, 430 yards. But one, those guys bring real pass catching ability, and I think they're really good fits in the Texas offense. I would also say this. I think that they're going to have more yards receiving. Those two guys are going to combine for more than the 420 yards receiving than they did at Arizona State and NC State. They may not have as many receptions, but they're going to have more yards receiving. They're going to have better parts around them. They're going to be in Steve Sarkisian's scheme, which is really good using running backs out of the backfield. And I just think when those pieces around those guys, when you have Cam Coleman drawing 2, when you have Ryan Wingo's threat, when you have Emmett Mosley's threat, you have tight end threat. I think Nick Towns is going to give you something down the field next year. Those running backs, Marcus, I think may have a little more space to play and work in, even though they're going to a tougher, faster league defensively. I think though out of the backfield, those guys are going to do really good things for Arch Manning in Texas next year.
Yeah, and I think the ability at any given time to be able to, mix and match your personnel, right? Like you can at certain points in the season, they may be able to, have Raleek Brown and Smothers in the backfield, and then you can, motion either of them out and do some really unique things with them where it's not as predictable as what, you may do in the running game necessarily. And then it gives, guys like a Derek Cooper the ability to come on a bit slowly. I think he'll have a role, pretty early, but it won't be one where he'll be asked, to be leaned upon heavily. And that's what you want ideally. I think he's about 205 or so now, Jerry. So I imagine, by season's time, it wouldn't be crazy to imagine him being up to 210, 215. But I think, I never want to have to rely on a freshman running back that early if you can. And for the most part, freshmen in general, but just especially a freshman running back, because you still need to be able to, make sure that that's someone that can help identify blitz pickup and be back there to protect if need be. So I think it's set up nicely for them to be able to come along. And then look, James Simon and Michael Terry, maybe even Walker, all will have the ability to, show in the spring if, there's a role that they can carve out, because it's a long season. I keep pointing this out. This is going to be the first of the 9-game SEC seasons that we're going to encounter. It's going to be a very long season. I think at some point or another, you may look up and need a number of these guys. We've seen that with injury over the years. And so, hopefully, knock on wood here, that, they're all able to stay relatively healthy. But that's a position where you can get banged up pretty easily.
Yeah, so I'm going to go down each guy and kind of give my thoughts on their strengths, or what I think they can bring to Texas. And with the young guys, it's going to be, we haven't even seen much of that. So Raleek Brown for me, I'll just start with the Raleek. I'm going to go left to right and then first line, second line. Raleek Brown, darting quickness, multiple shakes, make guys miss in a phone booth in space. That is going to be his strength, whether that's in the run game, in the pass game. Somebody that if the play's not blocked well can still manage to pick up some tough yards, not through contact fall forward, but through quickness and darting quickness and change of direction. That's Raleek Brown. Hollywood Smothers, to me, is going to run a lot like Trey Wisner. I think he's got a thicker, more of a running back frame, even though they probably weigh about the same thing. They're just built a little different. But I think Hollywood Smothers, and I'm not sure he's a lot better than Trey Wisner. I mean, look, Trey Wisner, we'll see. I'm betting Trey Wisner puts up really good stats in the ACC this year if he's healthy. Hollywood Smothers ran for 939 in the ACC. I think that's a little different when you're running in the SEC because a lot of those bounced runs, they close faster. They close territory and they eat up grass faster in the SEC. So we'll see there. I think he's a very solid running back, instinctive running back. James Simon, I remain high on, even what we saw. I think Marcus is the same way. I remain high on him. I think he's got really good instincts for the position. I think he's got natural physicality at the position. Obviously, he's going to put on some armor in the offseason, get closer to that 215, 220 range. I think when we had his dad on here, John Simon, after his recruitment, he thought 220, 222 pounds would kind of be his tap out, max out weight. I think he was closer to 207, 208, 209 last year. We'll see if he gets halfway there in this offseason. I think he's got some real instincts. I think his feet are always moving through contact. He's got really good leg drive. I think he can be good out of the backfield. I think as a runner is where he'll help Texas most. Michael Terry, I think the biggest question he's going to have to answer, which he's played all over the place. He played a lot of running back a senior year at Alamo Heights. This year was working and developing at wide receiver. Most of the season moved to running back. The biggest question he's going to have to answer, and, from practice to game, and we've seen some glimpses of James Simon in game, is at 6'2", 218, 220 in that range, you have to be, if you're going to be a big back, you have to be one of the most physical football players on the field. So is he going to carry the football in the SEC as that type of physical back? Because that's what he's going to have to do, in my estimation, to go out and maximize what he has. And then contact balance, bigger body, hadn't been a running back his whole life. How's his contact balance going to be in the SEC level where those guys are hitting you and they're 250, 260, 270 pounds, or those defensive backs are closing really fast with a lot of speed and got a lot of power at the safety position in the SEC. Can he be one of the most physical players on the field? If he is, I think he's got a chance to be really good. Jet Walker, people in the chat have been saying 220, 224 pounds right now is what he's up to. I think he's going to impact special teams. I think he can be a short yardage guy early in his career. We'll see where it goes from there. Derek Cooper, obviously, I think he brings a one-cut downhill presence to Texas. I think he's a physical kid, physical football player. And obviously he'll put on some armor. I think he needs to get to around 217, 218, 220 in that range. He was 207, 208 when I was through the school this year, right in that area. So I think he'll put on that 8-10 pounds looking at his frame, because he can add a lot of upper body strength, mass to his frame. His lower body's ahead of his upper body. But I think he's got really good power as a running back. And I think he's got really good physicality on contact and has that toughness. The biggest thing for him, all young backs, for me, Marcus, in high school on first contact, you can get away with dropping your eyes and then getting your head back up and going to beat another high school defender. At the college level, if you drop your eyes on contact, and I'm not saying this is Cooper, I'm saying most young backs have to when they get to the college level, there's very few who already keep their eyes up, always on contact. And that's one of the things these running back coaches kind of teach to these guys, to just drive it home, carry after carry after carry, is especially in an SEC or power conference or in major college football. If you drop your eyes on contact, by the time you get your eyes up, you're getting hit again. You don't see where it's coming from. So I think that's the big thing for young backs going to college football. But those are kind of my thoughts on those guys. Marcus, I don't know if you got anything to add.
No, that's solid. The only other thing I was going to add other than dropping eyes is ball protection too.
Yep.
You know, Jerry, like it's very different at the collegiate level. In high school, you're able to kind of run a bit more freely with the ball. You'll see guys kind of carrying it out almost like a loaf of bread, if you will. That's not going to fly, you know, when you play college football, especially in the SEC or against an opponent like Ohio State early on. So that's something that, you know, you have to be a lot more, you know, cognizant of. They drill that a ton. And so I don't think it's something that, you know, can be problematic for anyone. But, you know, when you're a star guy at the high school level, you can almost do whatever you want. It's a little different in college ball where, you know, you got defensive ends that run 4.5s, 4.4s that are running plays down from the backside, right? So you got to be pretty vigilant in how you protect the ball.
To Marcus's point, one of the big, and that's a great point, one of the big things when I used to be in national evaluations, I evaluated running backs, or was over recruiting rankings. One of the things I wanted to see, Marcus, is guys who naturally switch the ball to outside hand.
It's an outside arm, yeah.
You can run, if you're a right-hand dominant running back, you can run left in high school and get away with it 99% of the time. If you do that in major college football, that ball is getting hit a higher percentage at a time, and you have fumble issues.
Yep.
If you're going left, if you're going right and that ball's in your left, same thing. We saw it on a Texas kickoff return this year late in the season. That ball has to be in your outside arm, in your outside hand, going right, going left. If it's not, man, ball gets exposed at this level with how big and fast the guys are. That ball takes too many helmet hits, and it's too susceptible to get knocked out.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, guys, we got a couple of running back questions. A lot of people, or not a lot, but a few people wanting to know about Cooper playing time early. So it's just Justice here. Real question, are we expecting Cooper to get a lot of playing time as a freshman? And then he goes on to add, he doesn't believe so.
I think Cooper will play as a freshman. Now, are we saying he's going to start as a freshman? No. But do I think Cooper will play as a freshman? I do. I mean, James Simon played as a freshman. There's going to be injuries at the position. Marcus, they're going to want to, hopefully, if you're as good a team as you think you are, those guys get some late game opportunities against the Texas State or UTSA, although I do think the competition in those non-P4 games went up about 3 notches versus last year because it was terrible last year. UTSA and Texas State are legitimate G5 teams, good teams in G5. So that I think that will be interesting. But I expect Derek Cooper to play as a freshman. I do, because guys are going to get banged up, Marcus. And by the way, when Steve Sarkisian mentions guys early, if you follow the past, that means that kid's going to play.
Yeah, and in theory, again, I know we do this a lot, but he's your big time incoming freshman. He's the recruit that you went all in on to get. So you want to make sure that he has some reps as well, because if the season goes, the way you want it to go, it's pretty likely that, he's RB1 next year, right? And so you don't want him taking his first meaningful snaps at that time. But I would expect, kind of to the point of the question that Justice had, a lot is relative. I think if you look at the accumulation of the season, yes, I would suspect, some of these first couple of early games, you'll see a sprinkle of them. And then as the year, goes on, I think he'll probably find a way in which they know how to best use him, and his role could ramp up a little bit. But I would expect him to play more towards the back half of the season than the front half.
Well, we're going to talk some high school recruiting here in just a moment, but we got some super chats that I wanted to get to this morning. This first one here from Miracle Martinez. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you. Says, good morning and hook 'em. Y'all have any word on Arnold and Itkin? Prayers.
I would echo what Bobby said on the board last night. Just send your prayers.
Yeah.
And then we have one from Rocky P. Thank you, Rocky P. Appreciate you as always as well. He says, Saturday on Netflix, they streamed one of the greatest human feats I have ever seen. A man climbed an 1,800-foot skyscraper with no equipment. amazing.
I did see that this morning. I don't know, Marcus, have you seen that? That was
I haven't watched it yet. I heard about it when what's my lady that left ESPN and now she's kind of like heading up the Netflix sports coverage. And I think she was talking about that was going to be her first assignment. Her name is, I think it's Elle. But I can't remember her last name right now. But yeah, I heard about it. I haven't had a chance to check it out just yet, but we're still, iced in over here. So maybe that'll be something that add to the rotation today.
All right, well, let's talk a little high school recruiting. Jerry, as you said earlier in the show, a couple of visitors early weekend, and then we also got some film to play as well.
Yeah, so I had some visitors coming that were in over the weekend. The two names, Easton Royal and Brock Williams, the tight end out of Illinois, who's a stud, one of the top tight ends in the country. Texas already has one tight end committed in the class, JT Garachi out of New Jersey. So that tells you where Texas is headed at tight end in this class. They're thinking too. Easton Royal, obviously the receiver from Brother Martin, same high school DJ Augustine went to before he transferred the high tower after Katrina hit there in New Orleans. But there's Brock Williams. You see tremendous ball skills, great timing. I mean, he's a really, really high-end prospect. Jeff Banks had been up about a week before to see him. Every school is on him in the country about. Then he has a tight end need in 27. He's elite. Easton Royal, going to be a battle royale recruitment. Lane Kiffin was by the school last week. He will be on LSU's campus. He will be a couple of times. Now he's been back at Texas. He will come back in the spring again. I think he'll also go see 2 or 3 other schools, Florida, Tennessee's. What he mentioned to CJ and I at the Under Armour All-America game. It needs to be a battle. 10-3 wide receivers. If nobody wants them, you probably got a guy that can't catch. So this needs to be a battle royale recruitment. He's a guy who is I call him a 4-star plus or 5-star because it just varies in the rankings right now. But he had an elite game at the Under Armour All-America game. He had the great one-handed catch. And I'll say this too, he can get a lot better. I mean, he is very talented now and he is very fast. But when he learns the nuances of the position and learns how to maximize every single step he takes, maximize his eyes, maximize his arms, maximize his hands. I mean, watch out. This guy could be really, really good. Who is a comp for Easton Royal, Richard McCleary? Let me think about that. I need to think about that.
I need to watch him play a little more. That's a good question. And it's, I had a buddy that sent me the picture of him and Lane, and he was like, uh-oh, and, sent me the eyes. And I was like, that was always going to happen. It should, right? Like when you're recruiting somebody like that, I would think it would be malpractice on Lane's part if he didn't go after him, right? But, at the same time, I sent him back a photo of the kid flying into Austin, right before Ice-Mageddon again. So, at least to that end, I think it's, a good sign that he's still wanting to get back on campus as frequently as he is. And especially on a weekend where it'd be easily, to kind of call out and be like, I'd rather not, you're probably not going to get to move around a ton. That was the same I thought about when I saw Brock Williams. I saw his picture from the basketball game and I was like, dang, this kid's really, into Texas. And I want to say, I want to say he may have even gone to the bowl game, Jerry. Or if it wasn't him, maybe it was Charlie.
It was Garachi.
Garachi. Okay. I knew it was one of the tight ends I saw at the bowl game. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, to just, shows you that not only are these kids, interested in, making sure that they follow the teams, but they have a lot more available to them than most of us did growing up, man. It was just jumping in the car and getting to a handful of places that were, in the Texas area. And that was even with my mom working for Delta. We didn't really go fly and visit too many places. That just wasn't a thing, but that's pretty common, place for these kids these days. They'll, do whatever it is they do during the week with their schools and stuff. And then they hop on a flight on weekends and they're, flying all over the country. So it's a interesting time for sure, but I'm gonna be looking forward to, especially during this off season, trying to take a look at, some of their junior film as it's coming out and that kind of thing. And doing a good job of deep dive. And I even saw area wise, Trey Moore, was, checking out campus some, as well as had Chris Jackson in his home the other day. So came by school and, popped by his house, which, of course, isn't too far in the Pflugerville area, but still cool to see that they're, on top of one of the top local prospects.
Yeah, so Texas staff was out on the road last week. They are going to bring – this weekend was going to be a few offensive high school visitors. I think the weather kind of knocked a lot of that out. Kids from Dallas obviously weren't going to end up coming down this weekend. So it becomes a dead period on February 2nd, and it rolls all the way through March 1st. That's a recruiting dead period, no face-to-face contact. That means this weekend there will be some schools that will have a few kids in. Texas is looking to get some 2027 defensive prospects on campus this weekend. The staff was out on the road last weekend. All right, this one's for you, Marcus. This is Joakim Gouda, linebacker from South Paulding in Douglasville, Georgia. This guy has extremely bad intentions on a football field. Will Muschamp was by his school last week to see him. He is 6'3", 225. And when I'm telling you this guy's physical now, he is. Here comes the helmet and the ball. He is physical. I mean, this guy is a hammer. Watch him on the kickoff. This is one of the more physical linebackers. I mean, that kid's out for the count, dude. They had to move on quick from that one. He's 6'3", 225. Everybody's offered him that's been through the school. He has closing speed. He has physicality. He flows to the football with instincts. This is one of the top. There goes the ball again. This is one of the top defensive prospects, I think, on the board for Texas at linebacker. And where I also just put up a story on Texas football. How many new offers have gone out in January? I think we're at like 17, 18. We knew there'd be over 10.
Yeah.
A lot of them are at linebacker because Will Muschamp coming in and secondary. So this is going to be Will Muschamp's first full recruiting class, or first recruiting class as the defensive coordinator at Texas. So you're going to see the offers. Boy, this kid hits. The offers that go out, a lot of them are going to be on defense because a lot of those offensive offers, I mean, not that there won't be some new offers. Barjaluke's only made one new offer at running back, and you know there will be more. He's been in contact with some guys like David Segara, running back out of Burns in South Carolina that he had offered at Florida. They're trying to get him to come in the spring. There'll be more offensive offers, but your OL offers for the most part, those top line guys are those top line guys. They added one offer on junior day. Quarterback, they added Ty Knutson offer, see where they go at the quarterback position. At wide receiver, they offered Antonio Cromartie's son in early January, who moved from Mater Dei to College Park. We'll see if they make a big move on him. But the majority, a lot of your offers in January have been D-line, linebacker, and DB. And I think that's pretty easy to say why. That's because Will Muschamp has come in. This is his first class. Blake Gideon's back. They still have a Nichols coach or another hire to make. And then Will Muschamp, just bringing that staff together and saying, all right, this is what we're looking for under me on defense.
Well, and I think to your point, Jerry, I mean, automatically, right? Muschamp and Blake both have recruited, that Georgia area for at least the last 12 months, right? Like, seen plenty of guys come in and out of the Georgia facilities as well as Georgia Tech. So, it makes sense that they're going to start with some of those guys. When I was watching this film, and somebody there said, that guy's a man. Like, I don't think I got to 225 till maybe my sophomore year in college. I was running around a little thinner in high school. But again, this just goes to the development that some of these guys have early on, and I think they're just eating stuff different, man. But yeah, watching this film too, Jerry, and this is what it reminded me a little bit of. Not as good, but if anybody can go back and look at Darnell Dockett highlight from high school, I think he was running around at linebacker, and then they would just put him down the edge, and he was just like a man amongst boys out there. He was just flinging people around. So it's always kind of fun to watch those kind of guys. But yeah, I mean, that's a guy that's going to play linebacker in the SEC for sure.
Of those January offers, I think there's 17. 3 were on offense, and the remainders were on defense. So that tells you a lot about Will Muschamp coming in, kind of putting his stamp on this early. And Will Muschamp's done a lot of those in-person evaluations. He was in Oklahoma last week with Blake Gideon. He was in DFW. Then he went down to Georgia. There's a joke about a song in there, yes, but that's not Muschamp. But then he went down to Georgia. Kenny Baker was in Mississippi, Alabama. So Blake Gideon was around DFW in Oklahoma and a couple areas as well.
Nice.
Well, we have more to talk about this morning. Jerry, I'm going to let you tell everyone about Hayes City Store first, though.
Yeah, I can do that, man. One of the few places that you go that you really do know they're just special when you get there. And that is the first time I went to Hayes City Store. I went with my good buddy Jason Watts, who's in this chat, lives down in Wimberley. We grew up together, and he had me meet him there for college football Saturday when Texas was off. I was blown away. I loved it. It's scratch-made Texas comfort food. They've got their famous truck stop enchiladas, award-winning chicken fried steak, homemade desserts. All of it's absolutely delicious. All of it's from scratch. They also have live music 6 nights a week. It's a great venue, just really cool. Outdoor with 50 beer taps, ice cold long necks, and tasty margaritas. There are 13 TVs alone in their ice house, which is perfect for game days. They also have brunch served 10 a.m., 3 p.m. every Sunday. Hayes City Store is also dog friendly, and they have a tree net for kids. I wouldn't mix the two. Join the folks at Hayes City Store and bring your whole crew. For more information, check out the website, HayesCityStoreTX.com. What is it? It's uniquely Texas and a really cool venue to go watch college pro sports with live music in the background, have dinner, have a couple of drinks. Really good vibe at Hayes City Store.
Thank you, Jerry. And I'm going to tell everyone about Prize Picks this morning. Prize Picks, well, they have everything. If you're starting a new routine or you're making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. And with high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend, elite hoops action almost every night, the action never stops. Prize Picks lets you take control. And when I say they have everything, I mean they have everything that you can choose from. The NFL, there's college basketball, NBA, NHL, even baseball is about to start. They'll have that. They have esports if that's your thing. I even saw table tennis listed this morning as an option. You want it, they got it. So go check them out at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code ONTexas to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. They also have a new social feeds feature where you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us at On Texas Football and tell or fade our picks with just one click. And Prize Picks is now available in all 50 states. That includes California, Florida, Georgia, and right here in the great state of Texas. So again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code ONTexas to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Code ONTexas will get you $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And that's Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. All right, guys, we have some questions to get to, some super chats, I believe, as well. And let's take the super chat from Juan Garza. He says, do you think if Muschamp wasn't available for Sark, he may have gone the Gary Patterson route? Would that have been his second choice to replace PK?
Juan, that's a great question, and honestly, I don't know. I think the Muschamp thing, they have the same agent. They're both Jimmy Sexton guys. So I think there was just a lot probably going on behind the scenes through Sexton where Sark knew that could happen. But that's a great question. I don't have that answer. But I'm guessing if it would have gone past Muschamp, Patterson would have been on the short list, yeah. Because, I mean, when Sark got to Texas, for those that don't remember, Muschamp was his first job offer at that position. His timing wasn't right. Look, for a number of reasons, but his son was in high school in the Athens area. Yeah. He had another son that was at Georgia, and I think him and his wife wanted actually some time with their whole family there in Athens. And obviously he's really close with Kirby, Bobo, Searles, all those guys. I mean, they're all buddies late in college, after college, and all through life. So I just think that timing with his family was really good for them to stay in one spot. Then it actually went to Barry Odom. Barry Odom was very high on that list, and Barry Odom did not take the job. I think he wanted to try to get more work to be back to a head coach and not make another DC job, which worked out. He ended up at UNLV, and now he's at Purdue. Those were the top two at the time. Obviously, Gary Patterson came in and helped the secondary, I think, quite a bit when he was there. But I think everything kind of fell into place for the Muschamp hire, because also that meant that was a good chance Blake Gideon was going to come back with Will. So, which is what happened. We'll see where Will's other hire is, but I don't have the answer for sure on that. But all the other guys that Boom looked or that Sark really liked when he got to Texas were all head coaches right now.
Hey, one thing that we haven't mentioned this morning, and John Bianco actually tweeted this out a little bit ago, but he says 4 Longhorns are in Super Bowl bound. Michael Dixon and Byron Murphy playing for the Seahawks with defensive back Quandre Diggs on the practice squad and Brendan Schooler on the Patriots, all making Super Bowl debut, marking the 20th time in the last 21 seasons that a Longhorn will be in the big game.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And this, I mean, you're guaranteed to get a Super Bowl winner out of it. So, you know, you can't beat that. I was watching the game last night, and I know right there at the end when they were trying to ice it and Dixon was going about to kick, and they were like, all he has to do is get the ball off. I was like, nah, he's about to coffin corner this thing. Like this game is pretty much over. But even then, man, they, Stafford and Puka made a few plays. It was pretty cool watching it too, because it was just like, seeing the way in which they're competing at such a high level. I mean, both of those quarterbacks were playing out of their mind, but it's always cool to see, Longhorns run around there. I still can't get the image of the play Byron Murphy made last week out of my head where he, split the double team and the guy's like arm around his neck and he still makes the tackle. So it was pretty cool to see that kind of representation.
And this is also a guarantee that there will be a Super Bowl champion as well, which is by the way, that game, that Denver New England game, I don't watch much NFL. Everybody knows that. I turned it on. I was just skimming channels in the first quarter, and I kind of stopped for a second, and then I moved on. But then I came back at the end of the third. I was like, what? Like, the weather change in that game was unbelievable. And then the fourth quarter, I mean, I don't know how many games I've seen where it changed that much from the start of game to into the third quarter of a game. Granted, I don't watch every Buffalo Bills games and games up north. I just don't. But it was pretty interesting how much that changed. I wonder I haven't looked at any of the post game from a cleats perspective that those guys had. Did that affect any of those guys much? Because I don't know if those guys had made cleat changes, Marcus, during the game, or did they just kind of roll with what they're wearing?
I guess they at least had some available, but in weather like that, man, it's just like, and I guess with teams like that, though, they're kind of used to seeing things like that, whether it's, from the start of the game or, it rolling through. And so they're going to have any and everything on hand. I know even back when I was playing, they had any number of alternate stuff for us. I always laugh because back in the day when we played in Nebraska, they had these huge heaters on the sideline. And they would tell you like, hey, don't get too close to it. Like it's hot, like it can melt stuff. And Eric Hall called himself trying to warm his helmet up and melted a piece of it. So they had to get his backup helmet.
Well, let's jump to some more questions this morning. Let's take this one from DH Tex 11. He says, don't you think portal success will ultimately determine season success?
To a degree, yeah. Like I think it's going to be the case for every school, right? Like if you're bringing in these players, and look, I know a lot of folks have issues with the offensive line and how it was addressed or not, in the way in which everyone feels it should have been. I get that, but even with that, you still got what, Jerry, 7, 8, probably 9 starters out of this, out of this portal class. So, if you're feeling like you need to go out there and get those types of players, then yeah, you're absolutely going to need some of that success. I just don't think that's something unique to us. The other thing I looked at when I think back to that portal list we were first looking at, 5 of those 10 teams have new head coaches, which means most likely they have new coordinators on each side of the ball, if not at least one. And then, A&M, same head coach, but new coordinator on each side of the ball. In addition to the guys that they brought in. And a lot of these teams are having to bring in brand new quarterbacks, right? And, even for as high as Tech is ranked, I'll tell you now, I'm not sold on Sorsby. Now, maybe he proves me wrong, but I'd much rather us have to be replacing what we had to replace or bring in what we had to bring in than having to get into the quarterback sweepstakes. Or things like that. So I certainly think, that'll be part of it. But then another part of it is going to be a huge, element of the guys that are already here that have been cultivating in this program. Arch Manning, Trevor Gooseby, Brandon Baker. You flip to the defensive side of the ball. You got Jelani McDonald, Colin Simmons, Ty Anthony Smith. So it'll be a mixture of the two. But I don't think any one is make or break. Well, I take that back. I mean, I would honestly say the ones that have to, that is true make or break is the guys that have been on campus, right? Like you need your Arch Mannings and Colin Simmons and Trevor Gooseby to go out and play at the highest of their potential. I think the guys that you brought in helped them to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you're going to see bigger portal years when when a school hires a new coach. He may have a lot of guys follow him, his best players from a school he was at, like Signetti at James Madison. You may have a lot of guys follow you. Then you have your coordinator changes. If you look at the two teams in the national championship, I think there's a misnomer there. I think everybody's like, oh, Indiana just went to the portal and brought in everybody. Do people realize 3 of their starting offensive linemen were signed out of high school? 3 of 5 were signed out of high school. For Miami, it was 4. It's 3 out of high school, 1 out of JUCO. He went in the D1 transfer. So 4 of those guys were true recruitments, not portal recruitments. The only portal guy they brought in was the center. So Indiana had 3 from high school that had been in that program for a while and developed. Then Signetti came in and lit the flame for those guys. Did a great job. But I think on Miami, if you look at them defensively, and I'm just talking about the teams that were in the national championship, that's the last 2 teams we saw. They had a ton of they changed defensive coordinators, made a ton of changes on the secondary out of the portal, at linebacker out of the portal. All those guys dominating up front, they're all high school recruits for Miami. Bain, Moten. I mean, Mesidor was one transfer. Anthony Moten, some more of those interior guys, those young edge guys, they're all high school recruits. So I think it's going to be a mix. It's always going to be a mix. And I think high school recruiting is still extremely important because a lot of your great players come out of your high school recruiting. I mean, Arch Manning, Colin Simmons, we can keep going here. Anthony Hill, Wingo. I mean, we can keep going. But I think it's going to be a mix. But I think a lot of this at times will be dependent on, are there changes in a coaching staff? Is there a head coaching change? And did one year you get hit with a bunch of guys that go to the NFL draft who are your very best players? I don't think we're ever getting to a point where it's portal dominated.
Well, let's switch gears for a moment. Texas women's basketball game was rescheduled yesterday, but the men, however, did get a big win. I think over number 21. I think they were ranked 21, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. Georgia, 87-67.
Yeah, look, that was an interesting game for Sean Miller because I think he pretty much said at halftime they were down 37-30. It's now or never, guys. Because he knew as a coach that if they lost that game, there was a real uphill battle to try to position yourself to get in the NCAA tournament. And this is what I've been saying all season about Texas for anybody that's listened in the first year on Sean Miller. I go through the list all the time. People are like, oh, well, is Sean Miller going to get to the second weekend in year one? And I always respond with this. Coaches in the portal era who did not make the NCAA tournament their first year. Danny Hurley didn't make it the first 2 at UConn. Todd Golden, last year's national champ. Nate Oates at Bama. Brad Underwood at Illinois. Chris Beard at Ole Miss. Rick Pitino at St. John's. I mean, for people that act like it's a given, it's certainly not a given. Would you like to get to that point? Absolutely, you want to get there. That's what this game was huge for Texas, though. They had to win it. It was a must-win game coming off the last couple of losses because now they at least at 3-4 with 11 games to go. There's a path for them to get to the NCAA tournament in year one. And does that make or break Sean Miller? No, either way. No. I think they got really good players coming in. I think he's going to keep adding good players. But I think you would always love to get there. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't as a first-year coach if you're actually building a foundation of a program, which is what CDC brought Sean Miller in to do. But this was a huge second half for this team. Dalen Swain's almost playing too good now to where you're going to have to fight to get him back for a year. I think that could become a possibility. If he ends up averaging 20-7 in SEC play, that's going to get tougher. But I still think Texas would have a chance there. But they really, Tremont Mark, their experience it hopefully comes through enough for them. I think the biggest thing for Sean is, it's continuing to have this proof of concept with these guys because and that Texas still fouls too much. I put the stats up on TexasFootball.com yesterday. I had a basketball thread. The fouls, I mean, they fouled way too many three-point shooters this year, right? And Matas has a very high foul rate for as good a player as he is, and he is difficult to guard, and that guy will be a pro basketball player in a couple of years, probably after his junior year, but he has a very high foul rate. Texas has a very high foul rate. They're running really good offense with Sean Miller. It's been fun to watch him evolve as a coach over the years. I'm betting on Sean Miller to have success at Texas when you're only 3 head coaching stops, you went to Elite Eight, Sweet 16. I'm betting on that guy to have a couple of 3-second weekends at Texas over the course of his tenure. We'll see where it can go. Austin Goosby's tremendous coming in. He'll be an NBA draft pick. Bo Ogden can shoot the hell out of it coming in. He picked Texas over Purdue. Matt Painter might know what he's doing there, which probably means Sean Miller does too. But that was a huge win, because if they can get one of these next 2 road games, they're at Auburn Wednesday, which I think is a really tough matchup for Texas. Keyshawn Hall draws as many fouls as any player outside Matas in the SEC, and he's the guy that Dalen Swain's going to have to guard. That's danger zone, because Keyshawn Hall's really good scorer, lefty, can really score for all 3 levels. And Auburn, I think, can contest Texas' advantage on the boards. Texas is plus 9.4 rebounding. That's 12th in the country. They're scoring at 86 a clip. That's 28th in the country. They're one of the highest scoring offensive teams in the country. A lot of that's in fast break points. Well, if Auburn can negate you on the boards, they can slow your fast break points, and they can keep you from dominating on the glass. I think that's something to watch. I think Auburn and Florida are 2 teams coming up that Texas plays the rest of the way who can negate Texas' advantage on the glass, and this is a road game. So Keyshawn Hall, Texas fouling and the rebounding being negated worries me a little in Auburn, but Auburn's guards also have to guard defensively. They're not as good as they were a year ago there. And obviously they have a new head coach there. And then if you can get one of the 2 road games, though, then you go to Oklahoma. If you can just get one of those 2, then you have South Carolina and Ole Miss at home. While nothing's a given in the SEC, all these games are pretty much tight, except for, there's always a few blowouts, but a lot of these games are really tight. They go deep into the game. If you can get 3 to the next 4, you're probably in a decent spot at that. So that win over Georgia gave Texas life. If they had lost that game, I'd be on here saying right now, I wouldn't bet on it at all.
Well, to your point of things being pretty tight, typically, Jerry, it was at the half, right?
Yeah.
They really took control of the game in the second half. And I think that's kind of to your point of Sean Miller, starting to show some proof of concept, these guys having won some big games and in some different, situations in different ways. And so I think, what I saw them do in the second half went a long ways to that, because that game could have easily, been another one that went down to the wire. They were struggling a bit in the first half and, trying to find, their shot and, getting cohesive. And they were able to not only lock down on defense in the second half, but really blow it open offensively. So I was impressed to see, the way that they closed that game out and really took control of it.
I haven't talked to anybody over there, but if I did, since the game, I guarantee you they would say the way the players handled the pressure, because Georgia's a high pressure team. They turn you over. They got undersized guards who are really quick, good hands. They do a good job with some pressure situations. I would think that staff would say, hey, we were very pleased with how our guys handled pressure in that game, especially when we got up and Georgia had to start pressuring full a little bit more. It's man pressure, right? It's not like they're running Rick Pitino stuff, okay? But the man pressure, which they've had success turning people over all season, I would think the staff was very pleased with how they handled that pressure. And it's interesting. The SEC has so many tall, long athletes. Every game is different, right? Auburn's totally different team than Georgia, almost mirror images of each. I've ever saw total opposites of each other in the way they are as teams. So that's what you get in the SEC. I think that Auburn is going to be more like Kentucky, which Kentucky gave Matas issues.
Mm-hmm.
So can Auburn give Matas issues? And then who's going to guard Keyshawn Hall? And can you do it staying out of foul trouble? That is going to be the key at Auburn Wednesday. Can Texas play without fouling? Because if Keyshawn Hall's sitting there taking 12 or 14 free throws in that game, and you look up at the scoreboard, it's probably not what you want. And by the way, for Dave, I want to bring this up. I love the way Coach Miller tells it like he is. He is a winner. I agree. I think he's a winner. I think he's a great communicator with guys. I love the way he tells it like it is publicly, and so you know what it's like privately, right? I think he is a very good coach, and I think he's gonna be a winner at Texas. And I think it's a guy you can get behind. I mean, again, they're averaging 86 points a game at Texas. When's the last time you've seen a Texas team average 86 a game? They're playing fast. They're playing good offense. They have really good concepts. They will continue to build off those concepts if they get a little better offensive players on the perimeter. like Austin Gooseby at 6'5.5", with his ability to create and drive and create for others, brings something different than you have on this team this year. Bo Ogden can really shoot the basketball, but plays without it better than a Cam Heide to get himself 2 spots. Now they're going to be freshmen, and then they're going to add 2 or 3 or 4 guys from the portal. I think they're going to add a stretch 4. I think that's the one position with Nick Cody not coming through for them. He played really well in the scrimmage against SMU. I think he hit 2 or 3 threes, had like 15 and 6. But after that's gone away. I think that kind of held them back for what they could be to maximize this team offensively. I think they'll get a team runner combo guard out of the portal so that Austin Gooseby doesn't have to have as much pressure with the ball next year, and he can play off the wing. He can play with the ball and be an initiator. I think they're going to build this out, and I think Sean Miller's going to do really good things at Texas. Now, he has to have the NIL support needed at the highest level, but I think Sean Miller's going to win. And people have been asking about Wilcher. He's definitely gone through a cold stretch. He shot the ball a lot better. Like, remember last year at St. John's, he shot 27.5 for 3. He was in the high 40s for a lot of the season. He is in a slump right now. He's got to get it back.
Well, someone else that's a winner, Jerry, is Vaughn Lane. So can you tell us about him?
I can. Built for business travel. Maybe not this weekend, but every other day. It's been a little tough on the road when it comes to regional travel. Time matters, and comfort does too. That's why more professionals are choosing Vaughn Lane for business trips, conferences, and meetings. With Vaughn Lane, there's no airport chaos and no long drive. When you board quickly at private terminals, just minutes from your destination, and travel in a quiet, spacious cabin with only 22 first-class seats. Every trip includes complimentary Wi-Fi. And that's now Starlink internet as well. Snacks, beverages, hot towel service, and complimentary meals on some select departures. And the experience speaks for itself. One customer recently shared this with Vaughn Lane. This was actually one of the best traveling experiences I've ever had. I don't think I'll ever drive myself to Houston again. Boy, does that sound good. The service was incredible, better than any flight attendant I've ever had. Comfortable ride, great amenities, and great service. Vaughn Lane connects Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, and Knoxville. Boy, that seems to be growing by the week and month. And for group travel, Vaughn Lane offers custom charters, letting you control the schedule, routing, and experience from start to finish. Book your first trip at vaughnlane.com. First-time riders can enter OTF26 at checkout and get 20% off their first trip. Again, book your next trip at vaughnlane.com. What is Vaughn Lane? It's elevated regional travel.
Okay, all right. Well, we got a super chat that just came in. Going to go back to basketball for just a moment here. Shy City Horn, appreciate you. Says, I wish there was more consistency for our men's basketball team, but it's hard not to notice what Miller is building. I agree with Jerry. He'll win at Texas, and I've always loved how he utilized international players in the past.
Yeah, I think, look, I agree. I mean, look, I like the Sean Miller hire because I've seen him evolve as an offensive coach. You know, when you look back at Arizona with him, those tough Elite Eight losses, I think one was 68-66 to Wisconsin, a 2-point loss, right? That team that was really good. I think he had 2 losses to Wisconsin. That run on Wisconsin was really good. Another close Elite Eight loss. And those games were played in the mid-60s, low 70s, right? Well, he's evolved as an offensive coach. He is running really good concepts. I like that the speed they play with. I mean, again, raise your hand if you thought Texas would average 86 points a game in basketball this year, and they're over 80 in the SEC. I mean, they are putting points on the board. They got to get better defensively. They got to get smarter defensively. But I think coming in as a first-year head coach, again, I want to reiterate this. He was hired to build a program to be sustainable over time. And I think there's some rocky points of that, especially as much change as these kids have had at Texas. Right. I mean, some of the guys that came in here came in under Chris Beard, right? And they went through that change. And even kids that came in through the portal under Rodney, I mean, they knew the turmoil. Kids talk about it. People talk about it, what kind of happened. So I think Texas wanted a foundation built with a guy who's a really good basketball coach. And that means there can be some bumps. It's not always going to be perfect, even in the portal day and age, especially in the sport of basketball. Again, I can go through that list of guys that didn't make the tournament. It's not just add water instant players and instant wins. It's still, if you're going to build it, it takes time still to get it where you want it, depending on what the job was when you came in. If you come into one job and they give you $20 million of NIL, your expectations are different. If you come into Louisville in Kentucky and your NIL is $21 million, your expectations are different than here's build a basketball program that can stand a test of time for 8 to 10 years if you're here that long. We want you to be here that long. There's a big difference. So he was brought in to build a basketball program. That means there can be some bumps in the road, but I think Sean Miller is going to win. And by the way, the seniors, Austin Goose having a tremendous senior year. Bo Ogden shooting the heck out of it. Joe Sterling out of Harvard Westlake in California can absolutely shoot the basketball. I'm not sure how much you'll see him next year, but watch that guy long term. Got pieces in college basketball that can really help spread the floor and turn 21-7 3-point line into 23, help your spacing a great deal. And I think Texas has a couple of guys coming in. They're going to be multi-year players that can shoot the basketball.
That's good stuff.
Well, we got a question here from Nathaniel. And Nathaniel asks, who will get the number 3 next year between Raleek and Hollywood Smothers?
Yeah, I guess they're going to have to duke it out for that one. I don't know. Rock, paper, scissors, or I mean, they got money these days. Maybe one of them pays for it. Who knows?
Yep.
And speaking of running backs, Marco has a question for you, Marcus. He says, would you be able to compare and contrast what it was like going against Said, Jamal, Selvin, and Ramont Taylor in practice?
Yeah, so this will be kind of mixed because I got to go against Said and Selvin. Selvin was in my class, of course, and then Said was a year prior to me. So I went against both of them my first couple of years, and it was actually pretty cool. I was listening back to the interview with Trissel and Rod last night that you did, Jerry, and that was pretty cool because I had to go against Matt Trissel. Yeah, and then also Will Matthews my first couple of years on campus. Said it was kind of a mixture. So kind of like what Trissel was discussing, first team O would go against second team defense and vice versa. And so my freshman year, I was backing up DJ. So I had to see a lot of Said and Trissel and those guys. But it was one of those, like, you also knew that, he was kind of, as the team went, so did he a bit. So you didn't, really get to fully take him to the ground at all times. But he was also a guy that wasn't really going to let you. So with Said, you had to have the helmet strapped up every play because he was very much like Ricky, and he would kind of do some sneaky stuff with you where, he had a way of bending and using his own leverage where if you weren't ready to go, like, he would just dip that shoulder and plow right through you. And he was also a guy that finished every play. He would always, he looked up to Ricky, and so he would run to the goal line on just about every play. So it was always, tough because you knew, like, you had to be mindful of the fact that he was the star, but at the same time, like, he could catch you slipping if you weren't, ready to go. And then Selvin was, still trying to kind of find his way. At that time, he was actually kind of a bit ahead of his time. He was used a bit more as like a receiving back. He played some as a true freshman, and so we, had some good battles. And then by the time Jamal and Ramont were in the running back room, I had actually flipped over to fullback. So I was in the same room with them. So I didn't really have to face off against those guys much. It was just cool, like, watching them, beat everybody to the corner. Ramont, we could, split out, and he was, making one-handed catches and you name it. And it was actually cool to, get to spend some time with them. The day of the A&M game, we did that charity game against some of the older A&M players, former A&M players. And we're going to do the same again this coming season in College Station. But Ramont is still as competitive as can be and was out there, talking trash. So it was cool being in the room with those two guys, and then playing against Said and Selvin, in my earlier couple of years.
Good stuff. All right, guys, we got another question here. I thought there was another one from Marco as well. And he says, does Wingo or those running backs get more screen passes next year?
Well, Wingo gets one to start every game, Marcus, so we're going to go there.
I think you get both, right, Jerry? Like, I think you'll see a mixture of both, and especially with having Coleman out there, right? Like it changes the calculus and what you can do with your offense. So I mean, I guess probably in the aggregate, it's probably the running backs because you at least have two to choose from. You could motion them out. You could use one from the backfield, and then you can find some different ways to utilize Wingo. But for all of some of his struggles, he was still extremely successful on a lot of those screen passes. And so I don't see why you would go away from it, but I think it allows you to set up, maybe some different things, having Cam Coleman out there, and then, even Mosley there in the slot to still be able to block. So I think Wingo will still get his share, but I think, when it's all said and done, you'll probably get a number of screen passes to those running backs.
I wonder how many, just because of Cam Coleman's ability and the way he's going to scare defenses and commands coverage, how many just straight in Texas and Wingo's speed is an issue. I wonder how many clear outs to find Raleek Brown in space in a favorable match we're going to see. I think Sark's got he's got a lot more juice from a play calling to running backs out of the backfield perspective this year versus this last season. Because if it's me, I want to get Raleek in space to where if he makes one guy miss, it can be an explosive play. Yeah. And I think he has the wide receivers to create that for Raleek, to get to those matchups and clear side of the field, change the flow of the defense, right, Marcus? I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Sark uses those guys out of the backfield. I think it's going to be very good. I think Arch is going to have more playmaking as a safety valve for him.
Yeah, well, because you have to keep a safety over the top, right? And so you're going to really have to pick your poison, and more times than not, the running backs are going to be the ones that are going to get the better matchup. You're not going to have the benefit necessarily of using, maybe what would be like a star type of guy in our defense on a running back out of the backfield. You'll more than likely have true linebacker matchups. And not a ton of teams are going to have the types of backs that can really do much with those guys in space. And to your point, Jerry, you get them out there in space, there's a whole lot of grass that's going to be opened up behind them. So I think, this offseason, Sark's going to be dialing up, a number of his faves because it'll be a bit different. He has a blend of some of that speed, but he has a lot of wiggle. I think when you look at both him and Smothers, they had some of the higher missed tackle numbers in the country this past year. So I think that'll be something that, the offense can use to their benefit for sure.
And going a little bit more on wide receivers here, Code Champs says, do wide receivers other than Mosley block well?
It's a good question. I've not looked at a lot of Cam Coleman blocking. Things I've seen of Cam Coleman were Jackson Arnold underthrowing him or overthrowing him. Poor Cam Coleman, by the way. Look, Wingo's in year 3. To me, when you're in year 3, and it becomes straight effort, Marcus. The technique is there. The understanding of where these guys, the angles are there. Understanding the scheme and what you're asked to do are there. It really comes down to effort because you've added strength to your frame. You know how physical you have to be as a college football player and in the SEC to block on the perimeter. So, and I don't think he's bad, by the way. But I think with Cam Coleman, what will Sark ask him to do? How much will he put him in harm's way as a blocker is another thing to think about.
Yeah, if it's me, I don't need Cam Coleman blocking.
I don't think people fall
okay. Yeah, I'm okay with him not blocking. Yeah. But I think Wingo was, more than serviceable, and I think he has the build for it, the want to be able to do it. So I certainly think that, they'll have enough in that room to be able to get it done.
Okay, well, we got time for just another question or two this morning. But first, before we do that, I need to tell everyone one more time about our sponsor, John Donovan, president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John is a proud Texas X Life member who served on the Dallas Texas X's board for 15 years, and now he helps lead the Collin County Texas X's chapter, while also consistently serving his fellow Longhorns as a certified financial planner and the founder of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. As we reach the end of January this week, John wants to remind all of the OTF family that January is National Financial Wellness Month. So he wants to encourage everyone to take some time to really examine the state of your own financial wellness. And to help you do that, John is offering all OTF fans a free 90-minute private consultation to learn how a certified financial planner like John can help you properly evaluate your current financial plans and to help structure them to maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. And of course, optimize overall financial wellness. So schedule your free 90-minute consultation with John. All you have to do is call the Longhorn Wealth Management team at 972-707-4900 or schedule online at longhornwealth.net. And John sends a heartfelt hook 'em to all the OTF family. Okay, we'll do a question apiece here before we close out. First, the super chat for you, Jerry, from Sonny. Says, Jerry, do you see basketball one and dones that are not successful NBA players flooding college basketball with 3 years left?
I think it's what it comes down to is all these guys' dream is to play in the NBA. But if you get drafted and you go to the G League and you never play that NBA game and you have like a Bediako signed, it's still wild. He signed 3 NBA contracts, was in the G League on 3 different teams, have played in, I think, 37 G League games. Is now immediately eligible in college basketball. I think that's the thing I'm looking for. Guys that actually play in the NBA, they're living out their dream. I don't see that. I think your high-end professionals in Europe, if they can make more money in the States, I think they're going to do that. Not your highest end, but some of your high-end guys. And then I think your guys that, they could be a second-round draft pick, a guy that gave up his so-called eligibility and went into the draft, didn't get drafted, ended up in the G League. I can see those guys absolutely, as long as the rules don't change. Why wouldn't you? You can make more money and you can play more minutes, and it might help you. It's going to help you financially, obviously, versus being on. If you're not one of the highly paid G League guys in colleges, will pay you more than a G League player if they really want you. So why wouldn't you? Marcus, I want to add Marcus to this real quick before we get out of here, because I've been harping on for a while with Rod. I'm waiting for colleges to start doing this in football. And because here's my point.
So you're saying a guy goes to the draft, doesn't go where he wants.
On the taxi squad, who's going to stop it? Everybody's like, oh, no, you can't do that. Who's going to stop it? All you have to do is find the judge that's a fan of your team, apparently. Who's going to stop it? And here's the other part of that. I jokingly said I'd offer Cam Williams $2 million to come back and play right tackle. And I'm actually serious about it, just to see what would have happened. But the other part, Marcus, is, if the college basketball guys are going to the pro leagues in Europe and they're picking off guys now that are clearly professional, high-level professional players, like the kid at Virginia is really good. The kid at Virginia Tech's really good, even though their team's not good. You can look around and say, oof, that guy's probably going to play in the NBA or at the highest level of European basketball. CFL. Who has a year left of college eligibility that's really good in the CFL? I'm looking at all of it. If I'm college football teams are going to start doing it. It's all copycat stuff. It's not like they're going to look over there and say, that's a good idea, but I'm going to leave that alone. That, the European Pro League, where the NFL has brought 22 guys over that have never played a college game and are in the NFL. That means there's a lot of other guys that are really good players that could probably come play in college effectively well that just aren't that NFL cut. Somebody's going to start looking.
The only thing, the challenge with stuff like that, Jerry, is I know somebody, like, we're not going to be the ones that'll be first to try that, right? No. So, they would have to see somebody else do it. I don't know the answer, but I would be curious what within the bylaws are different in the two different sports to whatever degree, just because basketball can have underclassmen go pro sooner. Is there something that, they're kind of leveraging as a loophole? But to your point, Jerry, when it gets down to it, it sure, would be nice if, we had a guy that wanted to come back and it just so happened that the judge was a University of Texas booster and his wife happened to be an attorney that represented some players that played at some point in time, right? Like, maybe that would make it a little bit easier to get your Cam Williams back on campus. But, I don't know, man. It's interesting to see. I'll be honest. I was glad that they lost the first game that he played in, because I just think it's stuff is already off the rails. But when we go this far down the path, it makes things. I don't know. It could take things to a place that would just really make it a sport that we truly don't recognize. There's a lot of aspects of it that I don't. but at least I've been involved with it enough. And I know, guys whose, kids are getting recruited, and, I've had friends being recruited and that kind of thing. So I'm close enough to it to where I understand it. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but I understand it. I think the more and more that, you get down into that pro-ish, realm, it just kind of, it really kind of tanks what the game I think should be about.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. We want to thank John, of course, along with Prize Picks, Hayes City Store, and Von Lane for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for tuning in as well. Don't forget to head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Join the discussion over there with us. A lot going on that message board, Jerry. Of course, a lot going on the YouTube channel here as well. What's later today?
Yeah, we got the live stream tonight. We're probably gonna have a little recruiting update later today as well. It may just be me solo, depending on what people have internet wise from all the weather. But maybe do a little update later on portal and high school recruiting as well. And we'll have a couple other shows today. And everybody stay safe out there, stay warm, and we'll talk to you guys later today and in the morning.
And Marcus, thank you this morning for staying with us the whole time.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Well, we all hope you have an amazing day today. As Jerry said, stay warm. We'll be back tomorrow morning. So for Jerry Hamilton and Marcus Myers, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.